Good morning, everybody. Welcome to SC Cyber's series of webinars. Today, it's my pleasure on behalf of Tom Scott, the Executive Director. I'm Wes Eisner, the Founding Director of SC Cyber, to introduce you to Brian Bannister from the Department of Health and Education, Health Environmental Control of the state of South Carolina. Brian, it's great to have you today, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Well, good morning, guys. You saw the topic for today is education as a critical control, build a culture, as they call it. We can talk about all the cool stuff like pen testing and all that, but I really thought I'd just kind of bore you guys with education today and kind of why it's critical. And, what we face as a profession, I guess you would say, and as a state. I'm going to touch on a couple things that Mr. Perry touched on last week. Y'all recognize the CIA triangle, right? Everyone's familiar with the 90-10 rule? They don't tell me what that is. 90% people, 10% technology.
Hey, Ray, how are you?
Y'all familiar? So, here. So, I have a job because of this. Anyone ever seen this? IP Viking, Norse? You Google it. This is a pretty cool little website. It'll show you, everyone talks about the cyber war. What you see for the most part are honeypots around the world. These are used to basically let attackers in or hackers in or nation states, and then they kind of watch what they do to see what tools, tricks of the trade they're using these days to actually infiltrate your networks, computers, websites. But from overall standpoint, it's kind of cool to show you type attacks and who's attacking. And almost always you'll see two countries at the top. You'll see China and you'll see the United States. Why would we see the United States? Are we innocent in the whole world hacking disorder we have going on? No, not particularly. So when I got into this, I was very fortunate about almost 5 years ago to transition into security. My background's always been, for the most part, IT. But I went to work for an agency called Department of Health and Environmental Control. And what I call when you had your government agency, so you're a target. Then your healthcare, so you're a target. So now we're a government health agency. So I call it the perfect storm. So we get hit, and y'all saw some of these stats from last week. I pulled these, went back to the Verizon report, pulled these, as what Mr. Perry was showing. Y'all look through these, you'll see where the public's getting beat up bad. You'll see where healthcare is getting beat up bad, or attacked, infiltrated. So DHEC kind of has that best of both worlds. But if you look, like the bottom left here, 2016 in the healthcare industry. Everyone familiar with what ransomware is, right? Healthcare in 2016 saw an extraordinary rise in ransomware attacks. If you're an attacker and your motivation is money, whether it be an individual or a nation state, anybody know why healthcare records, what they're worth versus like credit card numbers? Anybody know why healthcare is a target?
Because it has all your personal information on their life.
Right. So anybody want to guess what a credit card number and information is worth on the dark web?
$5.
Yeah, about $1, $1 to $5. Anybody want to venture what a health record is worth?
50.
About $50. But you can commit infinitely more crime and fraud and profit from that. So it makes a lot of sense to go steal 10 million health records, right? You can commit all kind of Medicare, Medicaid fraud, other things. But then we saw a rise in ransomware. So if you're an attacker and you go steal 10 billion medical records, so then you have to post it on the dark web, you risk getting caught. You have to sell it to someone, you have to find a buyer, right? So what's the benefit of ransomware?
You can just get the money from the person you're holding the information from.
Right. It's mailbox money. So I deployed this nice little piece of crypto locker variant or whatever, and across the web, and I infect 100,000 machines, and everybody sends me $100. It's a pretty good week. A lot more than I make with the state. DHEC, about 18 months ago, I got a call about 11 o'clock in the morning, and this is why I'm kind of talking about education today. We had someone on our help desk who had just finished Security Plus class, got a call. One of our users was trying to open one of their files. Couldn't open it. They were having issues. Called the help desk. Help desk looked at the file, immediately recognized it as a crypto extension. So it was his first indication, and because he had been exposed to this type thing, that he immediately recognized it and contacted me. In a matter of about 2.5 hours, the cryptoware that we got, a variant, and we run antivirus. We have all the latest, greatest. But it was a variant without a signature, and I'm going to show you a video in a second to show you how you bypass all the antiviruses with your malware. But anyway, it hit 3 servers and it encrypted over 20,000 files in our agency. So we fortunately, the most important thing when you talk about ransomware and stuff is have a good backup. So we recovered it in under a day, restored everything back to normal. And it came in as from an employee the night before who was working late because at 2 a.m. they were looking for a particular Word document from another agency, and, up north actually. And the website had taken the document down, so they were looking for a version of the document. Well, he happened to find a, quote, cached document on another website out in California. That document happened to be a Word document infected with a macro that carried CryptoLocker, a variant that bypassed our semantic antivirus. So again, ransomware, it's ugly. It really is. Has anybody here ever got ransomware or CryptoLocker or? Good. I know some other agencies have, and I can tell about some of the people on here who might have some questions. So, let's see here. So this is kind of covering the basics. 10 steps to cybersecurity. This is a pretty good little diagram. But we cover all the basics. We have our network security, malware protection, firewalls. But the little one here at the top, kind of right, the user education awareness. That's where I really want to focus today and talk about kind of DHEC's approach and how we approach cybersecurity at our agency. For anybody familiar with DHEC, what all we do? We made a lot of popularity back in the floods because of dams. Whoever knew that DHEC, managed or oversaw private dams. Just a sample of some of our data. We're covered in our WIC program under USDA security and privacy guidelines. HIPAA, of course, for our healthcare, our health departments. CJIS, criminal justice information. We have a couple areas of law enforcement within DHEC as well. We also carry vital records. This is all your birth certificates, death certificates, marriage, divorce. But I tell people, STD, HIV, and probably the most sensitive data we have, as well as contact histories. If you go into a hospital and you have an STD or HIV, that is a mandatory reportable disease, DX notified. We have disease interventionists that will then go out and contact you and ask you about your recent sexual histories. So I think everybody in this room would consider that pretty private information, right? You'd want to still be out protecting that. Yeah. It's not typically stepping on the street. But DHEC's also over 3,000 employees at roughly 80 sites. So, and we have everything from air monitoring people to, again, HIV, STD interventionists. So how do you get everybody to think about cybersecurity? And how do you get an organization to think about cybersecurity? And that's what we'll talk about, kind of building a culture within our agency. So So we put all these technology controls in place, and we should be good, right? So this is a little video. I edited this just so it's about 2 minutes, so it'll go a little quicker. But what they're going to do is they're going to use something called Veil. Anyone ever heard of Metasploit? Kali Linux? Right. All right. This is a module or a program you can use called Veil's Python application. And what he's going to do is make an encrypted ransomware, actually command and control, that will bypass AD. The first thing you'll see is the original malware getting caught by the antivirus. And then you'll show how he bypasses it. Clean. Microsoft, of course, will save us. Clean as a whistle. That was hard, wasn't it? So I was showing a video, 2.5 minutes. That's how easy it is to create this stuff. All the tools are out there. They're freely available, open to everyone. People in my profession typically use these for pen testing, other things. But yeah, that's how easy it is. So we did command and control. You can see how easy it is to do malware or other malware or ransomware or CryptoLocker, which is exactly the kind of variant that we got kind of hit with. We had Symantec running, then Symantec, also firewall, nothing caught it. Now, granted, it was outside of our agency. Maybe our agency firewall would have called it, but I doubt it because there was no existing signature for what we got. So how do you protect against this? Any ideas? I call it one click away, or as I say, I'm one click away from unemployment. Get the people to not click. So the state as a whole, y'all talked earlier in the semester about, I believe Tom Scott talked about the Department of Revenue breach. And that really put the state of South Carolina, into full force as far as security. So we'll talk about a couple different areas, and we'll talk about community, governance, education, user education, and user awareness. Is there a difference between education and awareness? Yes, absolutely. And then, as I call it, just the water cooler talk. It means you're doing a good job. So we talk about community, talking about, do you have peers? You have your meetings, gatherings, discuss things, you share ideas. Because most of the things we see or the challenges we face, we're not the first. There's others. So, talk amongst your peers. The state of South Carolina's done a good job at getting various agency CISOs together, and then some other CISOs taking, and security professionals in the state taking a good lead at, continuing, monthly meetings, gatherings. We all have a pretty tight knit group. We all call each other or when we need things or questions. So make sure you have a community in place. It's really critical because you're not alone. Because sometimes it kind of feels that way when you're fighting 10 million battles. Well, you're not the only one. And state government as a whole has its challenges anyway because of limited resources, just like anywhere else. I was saying earlier, we kind of do things on a shoestring sometimes. But if we go back to like the 9-10 rule, really it's only about 10% of technology implementations for security. So make sure you have a community around you. Make sure you utilize those resources. Make sure you're always in communication. So when I started my program at DHEC almost 5 years ago, first thing we do is we need governance. And I have up here, policies and procedures don't equal governance. Because if you can write a policy and procedure and you can put it in place, and all it is a piece of writing on a website somewhere or in a book, right? So it doesn't equal government. So we also need, if I'm going to change an organization, if I'm going to change the way you behave or how you do things, perform your work, or how you use your computer, what authority do I have? I go back to my policies and procedures that I've implemented, which is kind of the key to starting the foundation of our program. So on top of that, it's not just, I put the policies out and now I have the authority. You need to be involved, organization from top down. If your organization or your agency has attorneys, are you working with attorneys on various things? I work, actually it's capitalized because we have Office of General Counsel. I work extensively with them on everything from contracts, data sharing, policies, and then also in your programs and divisions in your organization. Because like an organization our size, we have, I don't know how many different programs, but we have environmental, we have health, we have vital records, various areas, and a lot of areas have a lot of their own local policies and procedures. And one of the keys of working with your areas, people like to say, well, our users, some of them don't know how to reboot a PC. But if you put in place a security control that prevents them from doing something, it is amazing how smart they get. So whenever you're working with these agencies and stuff, security people are typically seen as the no person. No, you can't do that. No, you can't use that. No, you can't, whatever. You have to find a balance between your business and your security. If you just go at it, with a totalitarian attitude of this is the policy, this is security, this is what we're doing, then it's never going to work. You got to find that balance and buy-in from the programs and staff. And as well as other policy groups. I work extensively with HR as well. Why would I be working with HR? Employee screening. How do we onboard? Do we do background checks? Are those policies and stuff up to date? Are those compliant with my policies? So then we talk about education. And this was a big one. And I have security training. And what I mean by that is electronic. Putting somebody on a webinar doesn't educate them. I'm a big proponent of classroom learning or webinars like this where you can actually interact. Watching a YouTube video doesn't make you a security professional. But in your IT department, we've trained about 1/3 of our agency's IT employees in either Security Plus or ethical hacking or both. The help desk individual that I mentioned that recognized the crypto locker, immediately after he saw it, was because he just finished Security Plus. And, I've had people ask me, well, why would you send a help desk person to a Security Plus or ethical hacking class? It's because now there's more of me. We're kind of talking about that a little bit earlier before the class is, I'm one CISO, but the more people I train and educate, then the more eyes, the more knowledge we have floating around our agency, and the more people recognize things. And this is key. CISOs, security officers, just in the title alone, a lot of times are seen as like, they come down the hall and people get scared, and that is not your role. You don't manage a program through fear or manage staff through fear. You have to be open. And that's kind of the last point I have down there. Do you have an open door policy? If your developers have a question about, something security or they're worried about a vulnerability, do you have an open door policy? And do they feel comfortable coming to you and talking to you about it? I work a lot with our IT developers at DHEC. Whenever they have issues or questions, it was just the most basic thing. We had a email submission form. And I said, well, we need CAPTCHA on it. And he said, well, why would we need CAPTCHA? I said, well, it generates an email. So we did a little test in dev, and I showed him. And in a little over a minute, we generated 500,000 emails. So putting that out on the web like that submits us to or exposes us to a denial of service attack on our email system. So just simple things like that. And it's educating him why we do it and showing him why we do it. It's not just the no, it's not just the answer, it's the education part of it that's key. Because now they know. They'll never forget it. Then user training. All organizations should have an annual security awareness training. If you do anything with IT resources, does it test retention? How many people have taken the online training like they had to take a class at a job or something? How many people have just clicked it, let it run, and went to the end and said, okay, I'm done? Don't lie, come on. I'm guilty of it too, I've done it. You click play and yep, I'm gonna take my class and now I'm gonna get coffee. Come back, it's done, and check in the box, right? So, is this training updated annually, and is it current? Is it reflective of what the current threats are of the day or the knowledge they need to know today? Because it's always evolving. Security is never a destination. As they say, it's not a destination, it's a journey. And does it apply just to your organization? Is it specific to your organization, or does it include other things people find useful for home? Think about it, it helps retention. If I sit there and read policies or things that only apply to ACME and it doesn't touch me personally or it doesn't relate to me personally, then you're not going to retain it as well. And is it your security training, is it just about digital information or digital security, or is it physical environmental security as well? As a security officer at an agency and most organizations, physical security is your responsibility as well. We go out and assess all of our 80 sites. And that's everything from, do you have passwords written down, or the windows unlocked, or is the back door open? So this is the big one. This is what we wanted to talk about today. Wow, I had a schedule. And y'all will say, well, Brian, you just did us a boring security speech today, and I appreciate it. But user awareness, and this is the key. Get out in front of your employees. We do this, me and Angela Wirtz, who's our compliance officer at Department of Health and Environmental Control. We call it a road show. We go around the state to the regions and programs, and we give security awareness talks. Every year we change it up a little bit because we're talking about the thing of the day. The one we're doing right now is about acceptable use of our information systems and why it's important. And, we don't stand up there and go, well, you can't do social media while you're at work, and that's a rule. We explain to them why social media is a hazard in our agency. We explain to them that malware and other things can come through social media. Facebook's a big one, Twitter as well. But how often are you out in front of your groups and speaking, and does your staff feel comfortable come to you? I know when I first started at DHEC, I might get 2 or 3 emails a week. Hey, is this a legitimate email? We probably get 100 a week now. And we are being bombarded. We filter roughly about 100,000 emails a month from our system because they're malicious or from malicious domains. So that's an indication of, I hope anyway, our good user awareness campaigns is that people recognize that and they're looking for that. Because just like the malware I showed earlier, all it takes is a click, right? And they're in, you're done. And Mr. Perry talked last week a little bit about, how long does it take for someone to detect a breach? The Veil tool that they were showing uses SSL. So all the traffic outbound, once they establish that connection, is encrypted. And it's the same encryption standards that we use for other things. It's not that we can decode it, right? So it might be years before we, actually recognize that this system's talking or exfiltrating data. I mean, obviously we have rules and stuff on our firewall that, help alert us to those type of things, but still, and I have on here, yes, Brian, thank you for the dry speech today toward the bottom there. But, I like to give real world examples, and sometimes they're a little, say, altered to protect the innocent. But, one of the things we were talking about, that I explained to employees, we're talking about your phones. Everyone familiar with Androids? How many have Androids in here? There's an entire penetration testing and hacking platform for Android, right? So plugging up a phone to your workstation, our workstation at DHEC is not your charger. When you plug it in, you're putting the agency at risk. There can be malware on your device. That includes iPhones as well, that then infect our network. Everyone heard the term air-gapped network? Military uses it a lot. It means, okay, I have one network here. This is in my internet, my general business. And then I have a private network not exposed to internet or anything else over here. So there's an air gap. This is how you compromise an air gap network. You simply get someone to plug in a device to that network, and then you can do whatever your malware is set to do, collect the information and bring it back. So in the real world examples, when I was talking about plugging in your phones, so this is typically memorable to people and they usually get a kick out of it. So we get an alert on this workstation one day. And so we go to look. We don't contact the employee because if you're doing something malicious, we don't know, right? So we're not going to call and give you a heads up. So we go look at the workstation, see what's going on with it. And everyone in there has smartphones. You plug them up and said, do you want to sync your photos or whatever? Well, how many users do you think just click yes? They don't think about it. They're just charging their phone. So we're looking at this workstation, and this is an individual that I know who they are. And y'all know how some couples like to document things? Yeah. So exactly. So yeah, it makes it a little uncomfortable. Then because I kind of see this person on occasion. It's like, wow. I'm glad they're no longer at DHEC, but yeah. And they didn't leave for that reason. They left for other reasons, but yeah. So it can make things a little uncomfortable. So I explained that to employees, and usually employees are looking at me going, oh, yeah. So they take that home with them. Make sure using in real life examples, like I said, that was something that's been altered a little bit to protect the innocent, but you get the idea, right? So, the water cooler talk. Is your name commonly known among employees? And not in a bad way. But, are you known? Do employees know who to talk to about security if they have issues? Are you accessible? Are you friendly? How many people in here are IT majors, or how many IT people are introverts? A lot of them, right? I talked to, a lot of people come in, wanted to get into security, and they talked about it. And, a friend of mine I was talking to a while back, he was just finishing up his master's in information security. And he said, I really want to do what you do. And I said, I think that's awesome. I said, but, you realize that half your job is dealing with people. It's not sitting watching a firewall or investigating malware. It's working with people and educating, and making sure that you're building that culture within your organization that thinks about cybersecurity and information security and privacy. So the water cooler said, do employees talk amongst each other, about what's going on in the security world? Granted, employees aren't getting an education from me to go out and write malware or how to use Kali Linux. It's just, the simple threats that, they can take home and learn from what they learn at the agency and also apply them at home. It's telling me if you change your router at home, the default password. Anyone ever heard of Shodan? Yeah, great little tool, website. It's the IoT, Internet of Things. It'll show you every router on the internet with the default username password. I would not want mine out there because I would not want someone stepping my network at home just to, see what I do or see my banking information or anything else. So, we apply things that, not just work, but get people thinking at home as well. Again, it goes back to the retention. So then they're thinking about things and talking amongst each other even more about security issues of the day. So once you've miraculously done all that, you've built your community. And is the DX program perfect? Absolutely not. It's a work in progress. Just like any other organization, again, the old thing we wear out, security is not a destination, it's a journey. So, and technologies and threats evolve every day. 10 years ago, we didn't have nation states trying to hack DHAC. Now it's amazing that how many outside countries that we block by the minute from attacks. So I hope that wasn't too dry for you guys or boring. Said I know it's not pen testing, but any questions or? Yes.
So, how hard is it for you to change the culture of people who have been working for DX for 30 years? Because I work at a law firm.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lawyer who straight up tells his secretary "Hey, can you email this?" and talks over her shoulder what she should email. I know it's really hard to get older people who are used to the industry to change.
It is, and there are some lost causes. I've had the pleasure of working with one attorney kind of like that. I was explaining this is what we do, and I will do this, blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, I understand, and that's fine. I can't make you do this. I said, as a CISO, I don't fire people. That's our HR responsibility. But as I told her, I said, I'll just be the one filling out the report when there's an incident. And then what transpires after that is not up to me, it's up to the agency.
That's a good question, but I would say it's age generic because there's some old people. You can look at me and you say, yeah, he's old. And I understand it clearly. And there's also some people your age that are complicit because they may know the implications of uploading an app on their smartphone, but they just do it because they weigh convenience over security. And so the water fountain discussion is a good mantra to enter because sometimes it's not necessarily what you hear, it's what you don't hear. And so if you're a CISO down the road or you're involved in IT, we have this whole cyber ecosystem now. And cyber and all IT, IoT is about 75% goodness and 25% boogeyman. We tend to focus on the boogeyman, but it is age independent. I've sat in front of people I can talk to you all the way to the very classified level on some of the stuff our adversaries are doing. And even less than that. And when you got an agency like DHEC, who's got government regulations and oversight, and I've had some younger people saying, well, yeah, General, that's great, but we're going to do this anyway. Well, because I'd rather have 14 apps on my phone that, that track your biometrics and you don't know it, or they, whatever. And so it's really about how do you create this cybersecurity culture that understands the needs and is inquisitive, and you'll be okay. And that's a long-winded answer to a great question.
I was just talking about like people who are used to the industry and used to doing things the way that they were doing things. How do you change that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like pushing a rope uphill. It's possible to do, but it's hard. And the technical people, the IT people, the cyber people, the security people, kind of live it and you kind of understand it. One of the key enablers, which is hard to come along, is the soft side of cyber. The legal profession, rules and policies, are the thing that supports enabling regulations and technology to go forward. And I will tell you, the legal profession, the two largest areas of growth in cyber are going to be the insurance industry and the legal profession. And mostly law schools don't teach cyber as really as a culture. You may have an electronic discovery class when you're in law school. There's only a handful of law schools right now that teach lawyers about blockchains and cryptocurrencies and applications and security breaches and how. And so they're smart people, but they don't understand it. And a guy like you comes in and goes, you might want to think about this, and I'm like, what the heck's he talking about? So the good news is you got a lot of work to do, and
Job security.
Yeah, job security.
But yeah, it goes back to that balance of process and security too. It's work with them to show them, okay, yes, I understand this is what you do, but if we do it this way, it's more secure, and this is why. And why what you're doing is an issue. But, at the end of the day, as I tell people, if I'm asked, well, why did Joe do that? I'm going to hold up my security policy and say, I don't know, our policy says you don't do that.
Give them an example locally as an example, and it's pretty easy to find. How many law firms, as an example, have been victims of ransomware, and what the implications are if you don't do what you're suggesting to do?
I got hit like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
2 days long of lockout.
And ransomware is getting more sophisticated every day. I mean, we were talking to Brian before you guys came in, is the challenge nowadays is you can have on Friday afternoon, the 29th of September, you can have the perfect security program. 6 months from now, technology is going to change, and so you've got to always keep up with the latest. So it's a constant refresh of what's going on, what are the adversaries, and there are many, many sources out there that can give you indications. The Verizon, the annual Verizon breach catalog they put out that looks at kind of areas. There's a multitude of sources that I'm an aviator, okay? Aviation is a constant learning environment. As a cybersecurity specialist, as an IT person, that's a lifelong learning. If you graduate with a degree in computer science or cybersecurity and you don't think you need to learn anything else, you're barking up the wrong tree.
Very good. I couldn't agree more.
So I guess my question would be, in what ways could you, incentivize people to comply with, security standards and things of that nature? You thought about that, or?
Yeah, and some of the SANS courses I've attended, they have recommendations. One of our problems, and this is a hard one for our agency to break, and it's mainly being from the South, but maybe the term tailgating. So we have badge locks, swipe cards, prop treaters, to back all our doors. Well, employees, this is the South, so somebody's behind you. Doesn't matter if they have an ID on or not, right? They just keep the door propped open. And that's a very hard one for us to break here, and it's a cultural thing. But, one of the things you can do is, and this idea has been kind of passed, is go buy a $5 Starbucks card and sit outside and, first person to say, well, yeah, they held the door, but let me see your ID before you come in. Give them a $5 card. And there's trivial things you can do that make a difference, that you can try. But it's hard to incentivize, give incentives for compliance.
They had an issue where I worked at where they're letting people come in that wasn't badging in to get into the building. And so they ended up getting tired of it, and they just got security to sit in front of each individual door of the complex and make sure nobody did it for a week. But that fixed it pretty quick. But.
I like that one. I'm going to use that one. But, again, it goes back to the education, though, as far as compliance. And, one of the first things we did, we set up a SOC, a Security Operations Center. And one of the things with my guys was, you're violating policy, you're doing something malicious, it's not a penalty. When they contact, because people, our agency, they do get scared when security calls you. And we could be investigating malware, nothing related to what they were doing. But, when we contact our users or our staff, our employees, these are our coworkers. And we are friendly, and our mission is to educate them why, if they're doing a particular thing, why it's bad and why it can cause a security issue for the agency, and to not do it. Now, granted, if they repeatedly do that and refuse to come into compliance, like the example in the back here, then we refer it to as a personnel issue. But again, we're always for the most part friendly and cordial, and like I said, our mission is to educate our staff, not to penalize them. Anything else?
Better stop it.
All right, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank everybody for joining today's webinar. Brian, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
We
It's a
appreciate
pleasure.
it. This ends today's webinar session.